Tune Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the National Podcast, recorded at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @TuneReview, that is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@tunereview.com, that is INFORMATION@CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
This is from The National on Friday the 12th of May 2023 from the Politics section. Parties in Glasgow unite in call to give asylum seekers the right to work. This article is written by Stuart Paterson. Asylum seekers should be allowed to work to allow them to support themselves and pay taxes, councillors in Glasgow have said. SNP, Labour and Green councillors united to call on the UK government to lift the ban on people being able to work. Rosa Sally, SNP councillor, brought the motion to the council, highlighting her own family's experience as asylum seekers. She said it was damaging, not only financially, but had an adverse impact on the health of people left with not enough to live on, and was leading to illegal work and exploitation. Councillor Sally said all people seeking protection in the UK should be able to work, make the most of their potential and provide for themselves and their families, similar to Ukrainians who have the right to work. Restrictions on the right to work can lead to extremely poor mental health outcomes and a waste of potentially invaluable talents and skills, both for the economy and wider society, enabling them to integrate in their local community. Councillor Sally, who came to Scotland with her parents as asylum seekers in 2002, said, "Asylum seekers are human beings. I have lived experience of being an asylum seeker and asylum seekers being excluded from the rest of society." She told of her father being unable to work, having an impact on him. She said, "As a child, I could see the effect on his mental health, unable to provide for his family," adding it was only after 8 years her family got full refugee status. The councillor, who is one of the celebrated Glasgow girls from Drumchapel and stood up against dawn raids in the homes of their friends, said, "We have a labour shortage and an ageing population. This is an opportunity." Other counties, she said, allowed asylum seekers to work, including Canada, the USA and Germany, noting that the policy cost the UK £1 billion over the last decade. The idea of giving asylum seekers the right to work had, she said, support from businesses. The motion stated the Urban Age 2022 report on Scotland's biggest cities, supported by Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, called for immigration policy to be devolved. It would, according to the report, ensure cities and regions have access to the workforce they need to prosper and requisite skills and labour force to deliver on our climate pledges. She said because there is no legal right to work, people are being exploited by employers because they don't have right to work. This would be the best thing to do to lift the ban. If there is a political will, there will be changes. Labour supported the call. Kieran O'Neill, Maryhill councillor, said no recourse to public funds was the cruelest policy any government can introduce, and blamed it on the ideological bigotry of the Tories. The Greens also supported the motion and called for asylum seekers to be given free public transport, with the £5.84 a day allowance a little more than the cost of a day ticket on the bus. That article was written by Stuart Paterson. This is from The National on Friday the 12th of May 2023, from the Politics section. Scottish Government challenged to publicly oppose Rosebank oil field. This article is written by Abby Garton Crosby. The Scottish Government has been challenged to publicly oppose the controversial Rosebank oil field amid expectations that it will be given the go-ahead. A decision on whether to allow drilling at the oil and gas field off Shetland is expected imminently after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak told MPs it makes absolutely no sense to become dependent on overseas imports. Capable of producing up to 500 million barrels of oil, Norwegian state-owned energy firm Equinor owns the licence and is awaiting a final decision from the UK government after a licensing round for production projects in the North Sea was opened up by Westminster. The International Energy Agency, IEA, and the United Nations, as well as scientists and campaigners, have warned there should be no new investment or production of oil and gas if the world hopes to reduce global temperatures or reach net zero targets by 2050. And now, Friends of the Earth, FOE, Scotland, have urged Scottish ministers to speak out against Rosebank, while revealing the extent that the Norwegian state-owned firm has lobbied Scottish parliamentarians. To avoid catastrophic climate breakdown and to do our fair share globally, we must phase out oil and gas in this decade, Freya Aitchison, FOE Scotland campaigner, said. First Minister Humza Yousaf has the chance to chart a new path away from fossil fuels without the industry trying to call the shots. If his government is serious about tackling the climate crisis and delivering a just transition, it must cut ties with the fossil fuel industry and ban them from lobbying. It comes after First Minister Humza Yousaf said that the decision on Rosebank should take into account a number of different factors at an energy conference in Glasgow on Wednesday. Figures compiled by FOE Scotland found that from after the 2021 Holyrood election until the end of 2022, Equinor met 13 times with MSPs, 5 of which were with the government ministers. Meanwhile, oil lobby group Offshore Energies UK, who represent Equinor, met with members of the Scottish Parliament at least 36 times over the last 2 years. Asked for his response to FOE Scotland's calls following First Minister's questions and if he would speak out against Rosebank, the First Minister said, "That's a decision for the UK government to make. I've made my position clear in terms of what should be considered in relation to any future oil and gas." The Scottish Government is due to release an updated version of the draft Energy Strategy and Just Transition Plan, published in January this year. The First Minister's official spokesperson said when the issue was raised during the post-FMQ's briefing. "We've just finished the consultation on this strategy, so we have a large number of responses, and we want time to consider that in detail, and then we'll give a response," he said. The decision on Rosebank is reserved to the UK government, and previously Nicola Sturgeon's criticism of the Cambo oil field, also off Shetland, put pressure on the development, with Shell later pulling out. Asked why the First Minister appears to be reluctant to make a similar gesture against Rosebank, and if it meant he was favouring industry over climate warnings, the spokesperson said, "He's set out his position, I can't go beyond what he's said." Prior to Equinor announcing a formal application to develop Rosebank, which emerged in August 2022, the Norwegian firm pursued meetings with 8 MSPs in the North East and Shetland, FOE Scotland said. The 2022 cross-party group on oil and gas, chaired by Offshore Energies UK, was attended by 6 MSPs, with the group listing amongst its aims encouraging greater recognition of the importance of the oil and gas industry in Scotland. FOE's Aitchison said that the group's research was an example of the insidious power Equinor and others have over decision-making in Scotland. The scale and reach of Equinor lobbying operation designed to influence the Scottish Government should be extremely alarming to anyone who takes the climate crisis seriously, she added. For decades, the fossil fuel industry has denied and delayed the need for real climate action, and it is clear that it has significant means to continue doing so. Companies like Equinor have too much vested interest in continuing business as usual and cannot be trusted to play a meaningful part in a transition away from fossil fuels. Equinor posted £9.5 billion in pre-tax profits for the first 3 months of 2023, in addition to the £62 billion in profits before tax for 2022. The Scottish Government must remain steadfast in its commitment to a presumption against any new oil and gas exploitation, Scottish Greens MSP Maggie Chapman said, following FMQs where the issue was also raised. Whether it's Rosebank today or other proposals to drill tomorrow, we need to stop the climate vandalism and end our dependence on fossil fuels. That article was written by Abby Garton-Crosby. This is from The National on Friday the 12th of May 2023, from the news section. UK's first driverless bus takes passengers across Forth Road Bridge. This article is written by Steph Braun. A driverless bus has taken passengers across the Forth Road Bridge, marking the launch of the UK's first autonomous bus service. Scotland's Transport Minister Kevin Stewart was one of the first to strap in for the short journey as the stagecoach vehicles were tested on the service between Ferry Toll near Inverkeithing, Fife and Edinburgh Park. The service will operate on a trial basis until 2025, and each bus will have 2 members of staff, a safety driver who can take control of the vehicle, and another captain to sell tickets and provide customer service. While buses generally have just one driver, the captain is on board to demonstrate what a full-size autonomous bus may feel like in the future, when the buses can operate with one member of staff who can leave the cab while the computer does the driving. A fleet of 5 Alexander Dennis Enviro 200 AV vehicles will cover a 14-mile route in mixed traffic at up to 50 miles an hour across the bridge. The company believes autonomous buses will improve safety by reducing reaction times and improve efficiency by optimising acceleration and deceleration, which, it is hoped, will deliver significant energy savings and reduced wear and tear on the vehicle. As the driver lifted his hands from the wheel for the first time, Stewart assured the rest of the passengers he felt very safe. He told the PA news agency, "It's absolutely fantastic to see this autonomous bus testing here. We want Scotland to be at the very forefront of this technology. I'm pleased to have had the opportunity to travel on one of these autonomous vehicles. I felt very safe on the bus. There's been a huge amount of testing. There were staff on board. I hope the people of Fife and Edinburgh come to see for themselves just how safe all of this is. We need people to use public transport more, whether that be buses or trains. We're doing all that we can to encourage people onto public transport. This adds to the mix, and we have a way to go in terms of that change. We all have a part to play in carbon reduction, and using buses and trains is a way to do that. The buses have completed 1 million testing miles so far, and the vehicles have attracted the attention of the world's media. Director of Stagecoach, Sam Greer, said, "When you consider the billions of dollars spent globally on autonomous bus transport, I'm not surprised there is worldwide media interest. 5 buses will operate between Ferry Toll, Park and Ride and Edinburgh Park. We'll look to analyse the data, the reaction and feedback from passengers and the general public about acceptance of the technology, and we'll make a decision about how we use the technology in the future. I would say to anyone who is a bit cautious about using the vehicle not to be. There is a full safety case that has been worked through. The vehicle has been certified as safe for public use. The service will start taking paying customers across the Firth of Forth on Monday." That article was written by Steph Braun.
From the National. Friday, 12th of May, from the Culture section. Diana Gabaldon to speak at Outlander Conference in Glasgow, by Steph Braun. A university is set to stage a 4-day conference exploring the history and culture featured on the television programme Outlander. The show is based on the series of books by Diana Gabaldon, and the conference at the University of Glasgow will look at the history, politics, culture, languages, clothes and music in the series. Gabaldon will give a keynote speech during the event. The 9 Outlander novels and subsequent 6 television seasons have put Scotland on the map for our world readership and audience. Outlander Season 7 will begin this summer, and the conference will take place from July 18th to 22nd. I am honoured and very excited that this conference is taking place under the sponsorship of the University of Glasgow, Gabaldon said. A tremendous amount of work and organisation has gone into it, and I'm so looking forward to being a part of it. Willie Malley, a professor of Renaissance Studies, English Literature at the University School of Critical Studies, said, "Scotland not only has a great tradition of historical writing from Walter Scott to Dorothy Donnett, but offers the ideal setting for fiction that combines adventure, fantasy and romance." Diana Gabaldon's Outlander series was inspired by Scotland and in turn has helped put Scotland on the map, boosting tourism and engagement with the languages of Scotland, as well as interest in the country's complicated past, from Jacobite resistance to diasporic identities and colonial complicity. The University of Glasgow has strong links to Outlander, with its classical architecture allowing it to double for Harvard in the show. Academics from the university also assist the production of the series with their historical knowledge, bringing the 18th century setting to life on screen. Some have also been cast in the series in a range of roles. Gilibert Macmillan, a senior lecturer in Gaelic, the university's Glasgow School of Humanities, said, "Huge opportunities have opened up for me since I was first cast as Gwilyn the Bard in Outlander. I just love that Gaelic language, songs and culture have been given a worldwide audience through Outlander. I am looking forward to the conference, which will bring all the many disciplines and the University of Glasgow together to look at Outlander from an educational and academic perspective." The story follows Claire Randall, played by Katrina Balfe, a woman from 1940s England who travels back in time to 18th century Scotland and falls for outlaw Jamie Fraser, played by the university's honorary graduate Sam Hewitt. That story was by Steph Braun.
From the National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the news section, Alba demands Stone of Destiny is returned to Scotland immediately. Report by Abby Garton Crosby. Alba have demanded that the Stone of Destiny is immediately returned to Scotland following the King's coronation. The pro-independence party passed a motion at its spring conference over the weekend, calling on First Minister Humza Yousaf and Historic Environment Scotland, HES, to ensure the stone is brought back from London as soon as possible. We previously told how the iconic Stone of Destiny, also known as the Stone of Scone, left Edinburgh Castle for the first time in over 25 years on April the 28th to take part in King Charles' coronation at Westminster Abbey. The stone was placed under the coronation chair used in the ceremony on May the 6th and kept in place in the Anglican church in the weeks following until the coronation theatre closed. HES have been reluctant to give a firm date for the Stones' return, but the Coronation Theatre officially closed on Saturday. Albert have said the Stones should be returned now and called for it to embark on a national tour of Scotland before it takes up its new home at the £26.5 million museum being created to house it. The bespoke museum is not due to open until 2024. The Stone of Destiny is an ancient symbol of our nation's sovereignty. To some it might just be a lump of rock, but it is our lump of rock, Denise Finlay, Albo's national organisation convener, said. The sole reason it takes part in coronations at Westminster Abbey is to symbolise overlordship of Scotland. The Scottish constitutional tradition has a history that Scotland's king swore an oath of allegiance to the people, so it was bitterly disappointing that, whilst Westminster denies Scots their right to self-determination, the First Minister agreed to allow the Stone to travel to Scotland before following it there to needlessly swear an oath of allegiance to King Charles. The last time the Stone was taken to London, it took 4 decades for it to be returned. The Stone of Destiny should be immediately returned to Scotland. Alba's motion that the party notes with concern that the FM allowed the Stone to be transported to Westminster during a period that the Westminster government continues to deny the people of Scotland their right to self-determination. A spokesperson for HES said, "The Stone of Destiny will return to Edinburgh Castle in the period immediately following the closure of the Coronation Theatre at Westminster Abbey, but we are unable to give a date at this stage." The Coronation Theatre was open for self-guided tours until Saturday, May the 13th, where people were able to view the coronation chair among the other elements from the ceremony. We previously told how the FM said he would make sure the Stone of Destiny comes back up the road ahead of the ceremony to see the Stone off to London. And Alba leader Alex Salmond attacked USAF for letting the Stone go to London, adding that he should have refused to let it leave the country and had a standoff in Edinburgh's Castle's esplanade. The FM told the National that it wouldn't have been the right thing to do. King Charles' coronation was the first outing for the Stone since it was officially returned to Scotland by John Major in 1996. The Stone of Destiny has been used for centuries in the coronation of monarchs and the inauguration of Scottish kings. The earliest use of the Stone and exactly how and when it became associated with kingmaking remains unknown, but legends around its origins strongly link it to the kingship and emergence of Scotland as a nation. The last Scottish king to be inaugurated using a stone at Scone was John Balliol in 1292. And that article was by Abby Garton Crosby. From the National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the news section, BBC cuts government criticism from Dairy Girls star's BAFTA speech, by Xander Elliards. The BBC has been urged to explain why it edited the speech of a BAFTA-winning star to remove any criticism of the UK or Irish governments. Dairy Girls actress Siobhan McSweeney gave a short speech after accepting the award for Best Female Performance in a comedy programme on Sunday. The audience at the TV BAFTA saw McSweeney, who plays Sister Michael in the hit Channel 4 show, criticise politicians while praising the Northern Irish city of Derry. She said, "To the people of Derry, thank you for taking me into your hearts and in your living rooms. I am daily impressed with how you encompass the spirit of compromise and resilience, despite the indignities, ignorance and stupidity of your so-called leaders in Dublin, Stormont and Westminster. In the words of my beloved Sister Michael, it's time they started to wise up." But the BBC broadcast saw McSweeney cut off early. In the version the corporation aired, she said only, "To the people of Derry, thank you for taking me into your hearts and your living rooms. Thank you so much." Noticed online and shared by Twitter account at @OHJacob, the BBC's edit led to intense criticism for the broadcaster. Former number 10 spin doctor Alistair Campbell wrote, "This is incredible. I'm due to do BBC Politics Live today. This is what we should be discussing for doing the BAFTAs, surely." Historian and author Dr. Margaret Ward commented, "So they censored McSweeney. We can't tell politicians to wise up now. Thank you, Siobhan, for not being afraid to speak truth to power." Novara Media's Aaron Bastini wrote, "The BBC is generally a regime broadcaster on certain issues like this, foreign and security policy, the monarchy. But we get to call it a public service broadcaster because we all pay for it." Welfare Scotland chair Rob McDowell wrote, "Geez, this edit just cuts out the whole essence and body of what Siobhan said. It would be very interesting to see why this decision was taken and the reason for it." Other users urged the BBC to explain the outrageous and blatant censorship, with many comparing the edit to something that may happen in North Korea. Derry, which sits near the border between the Republic and Northern Ireland, was at the centre of a lot of strife during the Troubles. The Channel 4 show Derry Girls was praised for showing a new perspective on life there during that time, and the 4 lead characters have been honoured with a mural with the city walls. In 2019, journalist Lyra McKee was fatally shot during rioting in the Cregan area of the city. The BBC has been asked for comment, and that article was by Xander Eliards. From the National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the news section, Jacob Rees-Mogg's speech at National Conservatism Conference disrupted. Report by Hamish Morrison. A protester who interrupted a speech by Jacob Rees-Mogg to warn about the dangers of fascism was dragged off stage. The incident occurred during the National Conservatism Conference in London on Monday, during the former Business Secretary's keynote address. Eyewitnesses at the event described the protester as polite and said the intervention came just minutes into Rees-Mogg's speech. Peter Walker, a Guardian journalist covering the event, said Jacob Rees-Mogg began his speech and is immediately and very politely interrupted by a man who gets on stage, leans over onto the mic and begins to talk about fascism. He is belatedly bundled off. Another reporter at the scene said, a very polite protester interrupts Jacob Rees-Mogg's speech to talk about the dangers of fascism at the National Conservatism Conference. Dragged off, obviously. Walker said that attendees had earlier attended the morning, listening to a freewheeling speech from the American Israeli philosopher Yoram Hazony, who was one of the event's organisers. He added, Hazony is now openly urging the audience to marry young, have lots of children and encourage them to be businessmen. He is also in favour of a return to national service. Hazony is also the chair of the Edmund Burke Foundation, a US think tank whose stated aim is to promote the principles of national conservatism in Western and other democratic countries. And that report was by Hamish Morrison. From a National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the news section, Rainfrew, police make arrest as man dies after being found injured. Report by Jacob Nichol. A man has been arrested in connection with the death of another man in Rainfrew at the weekend. Officers were called to Tennant Street at around 4:20pm on Saturday, following reports of an injured man. A 35-year-old was pronounced dead at the scene. Locals reported that the street was taped off for hours with forensic and CID in attendance. A 34-year-old man has been arrested and charged in connection with the death. The suspect is due to appear at Paisley Sheriff Court on Monday. A police spokesperson said, "We received a report of an injured man on Tennant Street in Renfrew around 4:20pm on Saturday, May the 13th. Officers attended and a 35-year-old man was pronounced dead at the scene. A 34-year-old man has been arrested and charged in connection with the death. He is due to appear at Paisley Sheriff Court on Monday, May the 15th. And that report was by Jacob Nichol. From the National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the comment section, how Glasgow is maintaining its European links despite Brexit, by Annette Christie, SNP councillor in Glasgow. On Saturday, Sweden's Loreen won Eurovision for the second time, making history and joining Johnny Logan as the only performer to win it twice. This year, Glasgow makes similar history. The city has been crowned European Capital of Sport 20 years since it first gained the ECOS accolade in 2003. It means that Glasgow is the only European city to ever earn this accolade twice. Much has happened since 2003, when we were first recognised as one of the world's best sporting cities, going on to earn similar global gongs. Glasgow ranked first as Europe's leader for openness, tolerance and trust, and as the UK's top cultural and creative city by the European Commission Cultural and Creative Cities Monitor in 2019. Last weekend, Lord Provost Jacqueline McLaren hosted an event to mark Europe Day, the first time the city had been able to bring people together since the former Provost, Eva Bolander, held one in George Square to celebrate our European connections in 2018. So, what have we done and how have we managed to secure Glasgow as Scottish city at the heart of Europe? We upped our visibility and participation in Eurocities, a network of over 200 cities from 38 countries representing 130 million people, working together to ensure a good quality of life for all. At the height of Westminster debates in January 2019, which had everyone glued to their TVs in disbelief, apprehension and sorrow, Glasgow hosted a citizens' panel on the future of Europe. Glasgow was one of only 20 cities, and the only one in the UK, chosen by the European Commission to secure participation in bringing together citizens to discuss the new vision for the EU, whether or not we would be members. The same year, Glasgow was runner-up in the European Capital of Innovation, securing a €100,000 award fund to accelerate our work to improve the health of our citizens, tackle climate change, decarbonise our city, invest in the industries of the future, and expand our work with citizens to co-design a future Glasgow. Susan Aitken, the leader of Glasgow City Council, said at the time, "Glasgow is a city of innovation and reinvention, where everything we do is led by people, and everyone who comes from here, from wherever in the world, is an honorary Glaswegian." We have continued to secure and deliver a range of EU projects despite Brexit. We have just completed Ruggedised, a smart city project funded under the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme. Through ROOF, we're one of the 9 European cities that came together to collaborate on ending homelessness through housing solutions. We amplified the urban voice at COP26 in Glasgow, working with Eurocities-led Mayors Alliance for the European Green Deal and ensuring that a just transition is at the heart of the climate emergency. We have not only used the soft diplomacy of our sport and cultural affair offers to raise Glasgow's profile, but been resolute in the pursuit of urban diplomacy, as shown by Aitken, who surveys the world with stage with gallus confidence, while Labour counterparts try and put the city down at every turn. She regularly lambasted the UK government's Levelling Up Fund when the Tories changed the goalposts, sabotaging our bid for funding for the People's Palace. This £2.6 billion for funding previously run by the EU perversely somehow made its way to the Red Wall Tory seats in Rishi Sunak's constituency. Whilst Labour wraps itself in the UK flag and inconsistencies, it is clear that when it comes to Brexit, it's no longer time for making your mind up. Labour has decided to follow the Tories, who will be facing their own Waterloo soon, in a desperate dash to win hard Tory Brexit votes. And just last month, Glasgow ran, unopposed, to be chair of the Eurocities Social Affairs Forum for a 2-year term. The SNP group in this city are clear. Glasgow has secured a seat around the table with our peers and continues to be a proud European city. Scotland has a right to self-determination and join the family of nations, and we will no longer be a puppet on a string. And that was an article by Annette Christie, SNP councillor in Glasgow. From the National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the Culture section. North Lanarkshire Butcher wins first ever Haggis World Championships. Report by Xander Eliards. A family recipe has won the first ever Haggis World Championship. Winner Laura Black admitted she entered the 40-year-old family secret in the contest in hope rather than expectation as she lifted the trophy at the Scottish Craft Butchers Trade Fair in Perth on Sunday. Black, who entered for the North Lanarkshire Butcher Coopers of Bell Hill, says taking home the gold was the highlight of my career. I'm absolutely delighted. The world title is coming to North Lanarkshire, coming to Bells Hill, and coming to Coopers, she said. Around 70 other hopefuls entered the competition to be named the Haggis World Champion. Head Judge John Wilkin, a serious lecturer in food science at Abertay University in Dundee, described Black's winning entry as near perfection. Calling it absolutely superb, Wilkin added, "If there's a better haggis out there somewhere in the world, then I want to taste it." The judge said the winning haggis flavour was spot on. The texture was firm but moist, he added. The product was uniform throughout, yet it still looked handcrafted and traditional. We also enjoyed the nice peppery back note and the subtle tang of meat. But Black said the family secrets behind the championship haggis would stay secret. Let's just say we use only fresh ingredients and a secret combination of spices that brings it to life, she says. I've never entered it in a competition before, and I'm so proud and pleased. I inherited the recipe from my parents when I joined the business in 2017, and every time I taste it I think, that's a damn good haggis. Now the world thinks so too. Coppers of Bell Hill supplies haggis to outlets across the country, with overnight shipments delivering the delicacies down south. The 26 staff at the company's shops in Bells Hill and Motherwell are preparing to produce a bumper batch to satisfy the inevitable rush of customers following their World Championship success. George Jarron, the president of the Scottish Craft Butchers, SCB, which hosted the new competition, said the event had proved a showcase for the best in the business. We have been running a Scottish Haggis Championship for the past 30 years, but this is the first ever World Championship, he said. We decided that haggis was such an iconic dish the world over that it was deserving of a global championship title to let the world know we had recognised and rewarded the very best. And it was only fitting that the first world title for a product so quintessentially Scottish should be staged in Scotland. There are few producers of our national dish that wouldn't want to have a world championship to their name, and we congratulate Laura and the team at Coopers of Bells Hill for securing the first place in the International Roll of Honour. And that report was by Xander Eliards. From the National, Monday the 15th of May 2023, from the Culture section. Exclusive. Stories of Billy Connolly take centre stage as new show hits the road. By Donald Stewart. Theatre maker Gary McNair has been set a daunting task, collecting the stories of people who have been touched by Billy Connolly. It's one that he relishes. Dear Billy, produced by National Theatre of Scotland and billed as a love letter to the big un from the people of Scotland, opens tomorrow in Kilmarnock at the start of an extensive tour of Scotland. It is partly an evolving canvas upon which the man himself is promised to be writ large. McNair says, "It's a real honour to get the stories. I am so lucky that I have been given this." On Connolly, he says, he's like an elder of the community, very philosophical, and he always has wanted to know, aye, but why? Why is it like this? So why is McNair doing this? Because almost all of us have stories. McNair has set out to capture the effect Connolly has had upon us. McNair explains, "We had teams of researchers, street teams, people who went to clubs and societies and things like that, as well as targeting people who'd been in a documentary with him, or have worked in the same place with him at the same time, or were part of the folk scene. But the show deliberately focuses on the ordinary people who have been most affected and affecting for Connolly." McNair, who was among the researchers, said, "People are so used to being approached in the street by somebody trying to sell you something that, by the time you get them to stop, they are already working out how to get away from you. When you say you're not selling them anything, but you want to ask them about the big un, they suddenly stop and their faces light up." Although the team recruited the views of more recognisable faces, none are mentioned, as McNair wants to avoid the pitfall of checking through internationally recognised names. He did, however, exclusively revealed that had not spoken to at least one of Billy's wee pals, a certain King Charles. Billy is friends with so many people of so many highfalutin places. McNair's democratic spirit also runs through the piece. He says, "To me, everyone is the same. There are just people who have a response to this man and can tell you something about themselves, and that is what it's about. It is a heady mix. The concept of the show is that when we fuse all these different characters together, it is all these different voices, you end up with a shaggy dog story which starts to replicate and mimic the way Billy puts together a show." McNair stresses that the play is not about exploring anything new about Connolly. It's a piece of theatre in its own right. Neither is it a tribute act. McNair will not be playing Connolly in any sense. Instead, the focus is on the tales told. A lot of people open up a bit about themselves when we talk to them, giving people a chance to speak about somebody they love. And it is genuinely beautiful. You often get a wee bit of themselves as well, a wee bit of their hopes, their lives, their future, because it has opened a portal into them, into a vulnerable space through love, true love they have for him. When people talk about Billy, they naturally go into a Billy headspace. It's just a totally joyous thing. One of the best ways to honour Billy is to talk about his humour. He is the guy who says, "We should be talking about this, and this is weird, and this is mad." He's not a guy who tries to come up with the next joke. He wants to talk about the human experience, he wants to talk about the human condition, and if you want to honour Billy, you don't just go, "What's the funniest thing he's ever done?" If you want to know what we think about ourselves as a country, as individuals, what he taught us, It is not shy away from the stuff of life. The show goes to places where people are very honest. He's done a lot for people. He's not just a comedian that people look up at. He's had a real impact in a lot of people's lives. And as important, hopefully we'll have a laugh as well. And that article was written by Donald Stewart.
The National News on Wednesday the 17th of May. Firm fined after its worker falls to his death. An article written by Adam Robertson. A construction company has been fined £550,000 over the foreseeable and avoidable death of a worker who was impaled on metal piping. Matthew Mason, who was 20, was working at Bearsden railway station in East Dunbartonshire to install a public address system when he fell to his death. The worker was attempting to free cabling which had become stuck before falling backwards from a stepladder. He was impaled on a section of piping being used as the handle on a cable drum and was later pronounced dead at the scene. Sheffield-based Lynbrook Services Limited was found guilty at Dumbarton Sheriff Court of 3 offences, including failing to identify the risks of pulling cabling through a conduit at height, despite previously having been alerted to the issues by a subcontractor. The company was also ordered to pay £200,000 to Mr Mason's family in compensation. In a 14-day trial, prosecutors argued that the firm had failed to assess risks and put in place a safe system of work. Stepladders were also identified as being unsuitable for Mr Mason's work, as well as insufficient measures having been put in place to prevent a fall and to ensure the work area was free of material that could cause injury in the event of a fall. Debbie Carroll, who leads the Health and Safety Investigations team at the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, said, Matthew Mason lost his life in circumstances which were foreseeable and avoidable. His death could have been prevented had Lynbrook Services Limited put in place appropriate planning, supervision and protective measures to manage the risk of working at height. It's well known that falls from height are one of the single greatest causes of death and serious injury to workers within the construction industry. From the evidence heard here, there needs to be an increased recognition and rigour within the industry in addressing the risks associated with the use of stepladders. This prosecution should remind duty holders that a failure to fulfil their obligations can have fatal consequences and that they would be held accountable for this failure. An article written by Adam Robertson. The National World News on Wednesday the 17th of May. Early cyclone warnings saved lives. An article issued by the National's news desk. Early warnings from weather agencies and better preparedness by local governments and aid agencies likely saved thousands of lives during a powerful cyclone that slammed into Bangladesh and Myanmar over the weekend. But there are concerns about a large number of people still unaccounted for in areas where preparations were lacking. At the world's largest refugee camp in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar district, thousands of Rohingya from Myanmar were moved to safer areas until Cyclone Mocha passed. But at camps for displaced Rohingya in Myanmar's Rakhine state, where the storm hit harder, the presence of aid agencies is spotty and help from the country's military government is negligible. Only about 24 deaths have been reported by media in Myanmar, but many people remain missing from the camps, which were reportedly heavily damaged by storm surges. Information from the affected areas has been hard to obtain because telecommunication facilities were damaged by the storm's high winds. Independent confirmation is difficult even in normal times because the military restricts the media. In Bangladesh, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said more than 700,000 people were moved to cyclone shelters or makeshift facilities, including schools and mosques. Azizur Rahman, director of the Bangladesh Meteorological Department, said early warnings and proper and timely dissemination of information enabled authorities to move people to safer ground in time. An article issued by the National's news desk. The National Politics on Wednesday the 17th of May. Mary Black told off for the use of a swear word in the Commons. An article written by Adam Robertson. Mary Black was told off for using a Scot swear word in the House of Commons. While discussing the cost of living crisis, the SNP MP spoke of the increasing levels of poverty being seen across the UK amid the cost of living crisis. She said that food banks should not be part of the welfare state, but a symbol that the welfare state is failing. The SNP's deputy leader in Westminster added that the past 5 Tory Prime Ministers had blamed the COVID pandemic and the war in Ukraine for the havoc they've caused. Ms Black continued, "This is a dangerous government making bad decisions on top of a global pandemic. But mind you, we shouldn't be surprised, given they seem to have been pished half the time at parties in Number 10. Deputy Speaker Rosie Winterton then interjected and told Ms Black, "I should just say to the Honourable Lady, she really must not use language like that. Please don't. I hope you'll apologise." Ms Black then replied, "Inebriated, intoxicated, they were paralytic at parties in Number 10. Is that all right?" Ms Winterton told Ms Black she should be quite careful before telling her she could continue. Ms Black responded, "I don't see what I said that wasn't true, Madam Deputy Speaker, but I take it." According to the UK Parliament's website, this is the first time the word pished has been used in the House of Commons. An article written by Adam Robertson. The National, on Wednesday the 17th of May. Opinion. The Alba Party conference's focus on independence was so welcome. A column written by Neil Hanvey. For me, 2 words sum up the Alba Party conference this last weekend: Scottish independence. However unsurprising as that may seem, in the years since the 2014 referendum, it's a topic that's been conspicuous by its absence from other parties' conference agendas. As Alex Salmond has often said, the Declaration of Arbroath and Scotland's claim of right weave a golden thread through constitutional thought and sovereignty that endures to this day. And while their continuing relevance is undeniable, they're neither perfect nor some magic bullet that will reinstate Scotland's rightful claim for independence alone. In any democracy, it's the people who decide, and the means to secure their support lies in discussion, debate, policies, and an ability to make change happen. In short, folk must believe things are possible, deliverable, and that there's a real and tangible benefit for them, their family, and the wider commonweal. That's why it's no accident that Scotland's independence is the common thread that runs through our conference agenda and our strengthening policy base. If Alba is concerned with securing Scottish independence for the purpose of improving the lives of our people, then it follows that our policy base must illustrate that ambition at each and every turn. I had the great honour of being the first speaker to address our open session. The breadth of issues set out in my Westminster Leaders' Report demonstrated that though we may be small in number, Kenny MacAskill and I punch well above our weight on the issues we know matter to the people of Scotland. We're leading on food and fuel poverty, the iniquity of prepayment meters and standing charges, the robbery of Scotland's vast energy wealth while our people are cold and hungry, reinstating our maritime connections to Europe, and defending the health and safety of offshore workers who are being exposed to ever greater peril. All of these issues matter in preparation for statehood, developing resilience and strengthening our case for independence. But 2 interventions I made in recent months are entirely focused on independence. My St Andrew's Day debate and related Commons Early Day motion records Alba's St Andrew's Day declaration into parliamentary record. Meanwhile, my Scotland Self-Determination Bill merely seeks to secure parity with the Good Friday Agreement's constitutional provisions of a meaningful vote no more frequently than every 7 years, and should be uncontroversial if democracy means anything at all. While I'm deeply grateful for the support I've enjoyed from some SNP colleagues, I remain mystified why anyone who claims to champion independence would refuse to support these initiatives and, by their silence, willingly cede all authority to London. I've said endlessly that I'll collaborate with anyone in the common cause, and as we witnessed at the recent All Under One Banner march and rally, it's entirely possible to unite cross-party. All it takes is a willing, overarching commitment to our shared endeavour for the cause. Of course, we won't agree on everything. As they say, that's politics. And that's unambiguously why ALBA exists, why so many have joined, and why our number and strength continues to grow. Just because I'm critical of fellow independent supporting parties takes nothing from my determination to deliver independence, but it says everything about the maturing policy required to win the day. A good example of this is my concerns over the First Minister's questioning of the need for free school meals and universalism more generally. He seemed to base his position on his own prosperity, but universalism is about so much more than arbitrary metrics of affordability. Setting aside the rights, wrongs and costs of means testing, in Scotland right now there are over 20,000 families whose children don't qualify for free school meals, and who owe £1,356,540 to local authorities for school meals they can't pay for. My call from the ALBA conference for the First Minister to wipe this debt from local authorities' books should be welcomed by anyone who seeks to build a better country through independence. As the campaign kicked off in 2012, support for the SNP was at 45% and support for independence less than 30%. Now the position is reversed. A nation where half of the population supports independence has to be ready to seize political opportunity. The landscape may be in flux for political parties, but support for independence is now the leading ray of hope. For that to matter, we must campaign as one united Team Scotland, so every single vote for independence can be cast with confidence in that purpose. To be crystal clear, I will work with anyone who is genuine in their pursuit of Scotland's independence. But the only time I will ever sit down with the Westminster establishment is the day we open negotiations on independence for Scotland. A column written by Neil Hanvey, who serves as the leader of the ALBA party in the House of Commons. He's also the MP for Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath. The National News on Wednesday the 17th of May. Island projects receive £4 million funding boost. An article written by Adam Robertson. Projects designed to stimulate economic activity, boost tourism and improve community assets in Scotland's island communities are to receive a £4.1 million funding boost. A total of 13 initiatives will benefit from the funding, including a community recycling hub on Shetland and the construction of a new accommodation for workers on Mull. More than £700,000 will be spent to help preserve the 18th century Garrison House complex in Millport. Island Secretary Marie Gudgeon announced the news while attending a conference on sustainable islands in Shetland. I recognise the continued resilience shown by islanders in response to the climate and cost of living crises, but I'm mindful that ongoing support is needed in order to ensure the long-term sustainability of our island communities, she said. This new funding displays our commitment to enact our National Islands Plan across all 6 island authorities in Scotland in order to tackle island depopulation, boost local economies and bolster tourism. I look forward to seeing the positive impact that the projects will have in their respective communities. Other projects include the Canna Hub, which will help redevelop a former coal store beside Canna Pier to create a reception hub and accessible facilities to support the sustainable growth of the island's economy. Elsewhere, £750,000 is being invested into infrastructure to provide accommodation for workers on Mull, with several essential positions in the community currently left unfilled. A bike park is also to be created on Arran to provide the opportunity for residents and visitors to engage in cycling. North Ayrshire Council leader Marie Burns said, "We're absolutely delighted to receive funding for 2 projects of major significance on the islands of Cumbria and Arran. This will secure the future of the historic Garrison House in Millport, allowing it to be enjoyed by future generations. We'll work closely with Cumbria Community Development Company to deliver the much-needed conservation work and improvements. And we're also thrilled to accept funding which will support the creation of an accessible all-weather bike park at Dye Mill on Arran. The leader of Shetland Island Council, Emma MacDonald, was also pleased with the investment. The projects which we put forward for consideration were developed and driven by local communities and address vital issues for our future, such as employment support for vulnerable people, regeneration of community assets, food security, and addressing climate change through the circular economy. The news will be an incredible boost for these groups, and we can't wait to see the projects in action. On Harris, there are plans to upgrade the Hebrides People Visitor Centre to provide a quality attraction on South Harris. An article written by Adam Robertson. The National News on Wednesday, the 17th of May. Thriving National Book Town celebrates big birthday. An article written by Lucy Garcia. Wigtown celebrated the 25th anniversary of becoming Scotland's national book town yesterday. The small Galloway community of fewer than 1,000 people has undergone a major regeneration since it was given the title on May the 16th, 1998. A key reason it won the race to become Scotland's national book town, which involved 6 competing communities, was the plan for an annual book festival. The first Wigton Book Festival took place in 1999, and it's grown to become one of the UK's favourites, now running for 10 days a year and offering hundreds of events for adults, young people and children. The festival attracts 13,000 visitors and generates £4.3 million for the economy, supporting the equivalent of 57 full-time jobs plus opportunities for volunteers. It's all a far cry from the 1990s, when the town was in deep economic trouble after the closure of the creamery and the distillery, which were major employers, and when there were no less than 83 properties, some derelict, on the market. 25 of the people who've helped to transform the town gathered to mark the anniversary, including booksellers, authors, festival team members and volunteers, and some of those involved in the original Booktown bid. Sandra McDowell, who was secretary of the Community Council which made the bid for Booktown status, said, "We spent months putting the bid together, and it meant so much to win. The town was so far down at the time, and winning gave us back our hope and our confidence. And over the years, it's all just kept on growing. It's been an amazing journey." Anne Barclay, who was a Wigton schoolgirl back in 1998 and is now the festival's operations director, added, "When I was growing up, I remember how many empty buildings there were. The loss of the creamery and the distillery were an enormous blow. But despite the desolation of the early 1990s, there's always been an incredible community spirit in Wigton, and it's that commitment and determination that's helped to raise the town from its knees over the past quarter century. We owe so much to those who had the foresight to campaign for Booktown status, and to those who've supported, developed and maintained it, helping to create a beautiful and vibrant place to live, work and visit." An article written by Lucy Garcia. The National Politics on Wednesday, the 17th of May. Top civil servant defends Holyrood staff working for the Independence Minister. A front-page article written by Steph Braun. Scotland's top civil servant has defended the use of government staff by Jamie Hepburn, the Minister for Independence. Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack earlier this month told the UK's top civil servant Simon Case not to allow any staff to work in the department, an instruction that was passed on to Permanent Secretary John Paul Marks. Following a question from Labour MSP Michael Mara about Mr Jack's actions, Mr Marks told the Finance and Public Administration Committee yesterday that the civil service must serve the First Minister's ministerial team with impartiality, and that includes with regards to constitutional reform. He insisted it's been well understood under devolution that the civil service for the Scottish Government serves the Scottish Government and their priorities, adding the constitutional debate was not theoretical and is a here and now reality. Mr Hepburn, who said Mr Jack should get over his appointment, was handed the Minister for Independence role after Humza Yousaf became First Minister, and will be responsible for ensuring independence remains the golden thread running through every portfolio area. He's also leading on the government's Building a New Scotland series of white papers, marking the positive case for independence. Labour peer George Fuchs also wrote to Chancellor Jeremy Hunt recently, raising concerns about public funds being used to pay the ministerial salary of Mr Hepburn. Asked what his response was to Mr Jack, Mr Marks told the committee it's for the First Minister to appoint his ministerial team, given his priorities, and that ministerial team is then voted on by this Parliament. Then it's for the civil service to serve that ministerial team with impartiality. We serve the government of the day. That includes with regards to constitutional reform, and it's been well understood under devolution for many years that the civil service in the Scottish Government serves the Scottish Government and their priorities, and we provide policy advice, including the development of the prospectus paper series for this government to set out its constitutional objectives. As we alluded to earlier, that's not just theoretical debate or strategic long-term debate, it's a here and now reality, whether that be regarding the use of Section 35 or the interaction with the UK Internal Market Act. Mr Marks, who became Permanent Secretary in January 2022, added it was important for the civil service to influence and engage with the UK government with regards to the Constitution and devolution settlement. He said, from my perspective, there are very clear, proper and regular grounds for the First Minister to appoint his ministerial team. There's a clear set of constitutional priorities here and now which need advising on and tackling, because if we're going to deliver this government's programme, we need to continue to influence and engage with the UK government with regards to the devolution settlement and the Constitution. Mr Marks finished off his response by referencing Kieran Martin, a professor at Oxford University, who talks a lot about devolution and its history of change. Mr Marks said, it's not a history of stagnation, so to an extent it's important I have a capability as part of the civil service in Scotland equipped to serve ministers in this government, not just now, but also recognising things can change in the future. We'll continue to seek a Section 30 order so that any referendum would always be on lawful grounds, but also recognising the UK general election in 2024-2025, and clearly the future of the Constitution of the UK could change again, and we need to have a capability ready to respond. A front page article written by Steph Braun.
From the National, Thursday the 18th of May 2023, from the news section. Cost of Queen's funeral to UK government revealed. Report by Hamish Morrison. The multi-million-pound cost to the taxpayer of the Queen's funeral has been revealed by the Treasury. The state funeral and related events cost an estimated £162 million, according to the Exchequer. The Scottish Government spent nearly £19 million, the highest figure of any devolved administration, on associated events, including the Queen's lying in rest at St Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. Costs incurred by the Scottish Government and the other devolved administrations were fully reimbursed, the Treasury said. The biggest costs were covered by the Home Office, which spent £74 million, and the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, which forked out £57 million. John Glenn, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, said the government's priorities in the wake of the Queen's death were to ensure these events ran smoothly and with the appropriate level of dignity, while at all times ensuring the safety and security of the public. The Department for Transport spent £2.5 million on the Queen's funeral and associated events, the Foreign Office £2 million, and the Ministry of Defence just short of £3 million. Combined, the Welsh and Northern Irish government spent around £4 million. It dwarfs the cost of the Queen Mother's funeral in 2002, which is said to have cost £5.4 million, and is likely to have been more expensive affair than that of Prince Philip's, which was a pared-back ceremony because of the COVID restrictions. The event, held on September the 19th last year, came after an official period of national mourning. Thousands of people filed through Westminster Hall and the Houses of Parliament during that period to see Queen Elizabeth lying in state. And that report was by Hamish Morrison. From the National, Thursday the 18th of May 2023, from the news section, Deputy FM says trans community should not be punished for Andrew Miller's crimes. Report by Adam Robertson. Deputy First Minister Shona Robison has said the trans community should not be punished for the crimes of Andrew Miller. On Thursday, Miller, also known as Amy George, admitted to abducting a schoolgirl before sexually assaulting her at his home in the Scottish borders. The court was told Miller is in the process of transitioning before he pleaded guilty to charges at the High Court in Edinburgh. He had offered the girl a lift in February, but then drove to his own home, locked her in a bedroom and refused to let her leave. Robinson was asked about the previous comments she made when she told Holyrood there was no evidence that predatory men had ever had to pretend to be anything else to carry out abusive behaviour. She told Sky News, "What we're talking about here is people who have committed very serious crimes. Anyone who has committed an offence is an offender and should be treated as such, but we should not, because we wouldn't do this with any other community, take those cases of offenders and imply that somehow that is an issue for the rest of the trans community." She added, "Clearly this is a predatory man who has carried out offending behaviour and should be treated as such. What we shouldn't do is to treat the rest of the trans community in the same light, and that would be utterly wrong. We would not do that with any other community." Hamza Yousaf also confirmed to Sky News that Miller was being held in a male prison. He said, "This is a gut-wrenching case, heartbreaking. I cannot think of the trauma of the victim, the family of the victim, in fact the community are going through. I can confirm, of course, that Andrew Miller has been held in a male prison, but I can't say which one." The First Minister said he was unable to comment any further on an ongoing court case. And that article was by Adam Robertson. From the National, Thursday the 18th of May 2023, from the politics section, ex-Minister Nadine Dorries admits Conservatives are repellent. Report by political reporter Hamish Morrison. A former Tory cabinet member has admitted her party repel voters. Nadine Dorries, a fierce Boris Johnson loyalist who served as his culture secretary, approvingly reposted a tweet from the National Conservatism official Twitter account highlighting a speech from commentator Melanie Phillips. The tweet read, "The British public is repelled by the Tories as well as Labour. Neither speaks to people's wish to have a home with a set of inherited traditions and institutions. These are Conservative values. That's why people voted for Brexit." Dorries, who has been a backbench critic of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, replied to the tweet, "So clear and so true." It comes amid a growing row within the Conservative Party about falling rates of home ownership, especially among young people. Some Tory MPs fear the party has driven away a generation of renters who have effectively abandoned hope of owning a home. It has given Keir Starmer a chance to paint Labour as the party of home ownership, pledging to rewrite English planning laws to encourage more house building. And that report was by Hamish Morrison. From the National, Thursday the 18th of May 2023, from the news section, John Lamont shows ignorance of key Scottish renewable projects. Article by Xander Eliards, political reporter. A minister in the Scotland office was left red-faced in the Commons after inadvertently showing he was ignorant of a renewables technology that is seen as key to stable energy supply. John Lamont, the Conservative MP for Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk, was responding to a question from SNP MP Philippa Whitford when he made the gaffe. Whitford had raised the issue of pumped storage hydro, a type of renewable energy that uses surplus created during times of high supply to fill in the gaps during times of low supply. The Central Ayrshire MP said, "Energy storage is vital to managing demand as we switch to green electricity, and pumped storage hydro is the most effective large-scale storage method." Scottish Renewables has called for UK capacity to be more than doubled by investment in 6 shovel-ready projects across Scotland. Why are this government refusing to support investment in infrastructure that is critical to the future energy security? In his response, Lamont appeared to inadvertently reveal he had little understanding of pumped storage hydro projects which were being commissioned in the UK in the 1960s. The Tory minister responded, "I simply do not accept the Honourable Lady's analysis or conclusions. This government are very much committed to the infrastructure and investment that is needed to allow this new technology to evolve. However, the technology highlighted by the Honourable Lady presents an opportunity, and we will continue to work with the sector to deliver it." Whitford pointed out in the chamber that pumped storage hydro is hardly new technology, adding, "It has been around since the 1960s and lasts a long time, but it needs time to get built." Lamont did not address the correction. Speaking to the National, Whitford said he was not the first Scottish Tory MP and minister to show he was ignorant of hydropower's potential. The SNP MP pointed to a Scottish Parliament meeting at which Andrew Bowie, the UK government's networks minister within its net zero department, also seemed to think hydro was an emerging technology. SNP MSP Ash Regan asked Bowie about the Scottish Government request for the UK to provide appropriate market mechanisms for hydropower to ensure the full potential of this sector is realised. Essentially the same request has been made by the Scottish Renewables. In his response, Bowie said, "In answer to the first part of the question, yes, we absolutely do support it. Secondly, discussions are ongoing right now between officials at the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero and Treasury colleagues as to how best we can create a framework to deliver hydro technology to market. The discussions are at an early stage, and I do not foresee that any announcement will be made in the immediate future, but they are underway. Although it does not fall directly into my portfolio, it is in the wider conversation about the grid and the wider energy mix, and I'm keen to see us move forward and support these nascent technologies." Fiona Hislop, the former Economy Secretary, corrected Bowie, saying, "Welcome to the committee, Minister. Hydro is obviously not a nascent issue." The Tory MP responded, "No, it is not nascent. It is decades old." Whitford commented, "It's just the ignorance to think that pumped storage hydro is new tech. If they're that ignorant about it, then that's part of the problem. And for that to be two Scottish MPs, Lamont and Bowie, not knowing about pumped storage hydro is pretty ignorant. As it stands, the UK has just 4 pumped storage hydro facilities, which were all commissioned between 1963 and 1984. There are 6 shovel-ready projects in Scotland which have the potential to more than double the UK's pumped storage hydro capacity to 7.7 gigawatts and create almost 15,000 jobs, according to a report from Bigger Economics. Scottish Renewables, which commissioned the report, said it is calling on the UK government to urgently deliver the measures it has promised to enable investment in large-scale, long-duration energy storage so developers can deliver the existing pipeline of shovel-ready pumped storage hydro projects. In a simple example of pumped storage hydro, 2 reservoirs at varying elevations would be used to store power. If wind farms are delivering high energies of energy at one moment, the surplus is used to pump water up to the higher reservoir. Later, if the wind is not blowing, then the water is released to flow back to the lower reservoir, turning a turbine as it goes to produce power and plug any gaps in the renewable system. Such projects are seen as essential to a stable renewable energy network, as they can help compensate for the variable output from sources such as solar and offshore wind. And that article was by Xander Eliards. From the National, Thursday the 18th of May 2023, from the news section, Stephen Flynn in heartwarming visit to 89-year-old SNP stalwart. Report by Adam Robertson. The SNP's Westminster leader has posted an inspiring video on his Twitter about a key piece of his party's history. In the video, Stephen Flynn meets a woman called Nancy Duthie, 89, who made rosettes for the party years ago. She told the MP he was asking the right things at PMQs, before joking with Flynn that he didn't look the same as he did on TV. "I've not got my makeup on," Flynn joked. Duthie and her husband have been active members of the Cairnbulg/Inverlochy SNP branch since the 1960s. She used to organise day trips and picnics for the branch, and even went down to the harbour on election days to make sure the fishermen had their proxy vote in before they set off to work. In the video, Flynn asked her about the story behind the famous black and yellow SNP rosette. Duthie, who much to the delight of many social media users was speaking in Doric, told the SNP's Westminster leader. The Rosette started Fan Gordon asking me to mark a few rosettes in different colours and tack them to the constituency meeting. So that's what I did, and yellow and black was chosen. She explained that the black represented the past and that gold meant the future. Flynn asked Duthie if she was the brains behind choosing the famous colours, but she said it was just luck finding two colours that went together. The pair joked that the rosette suited Flynn just as well, he said. Elsewhere in the video, Flynn explained how he was in crutches for much of his life after an accident as a young boy. Duthie explained she needed assistance breathing as she has chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Flynn then proceeded to tell the story of his own disability. He said, "I've got a metal hip. So when I was a young lad, I basically was in school one day and fell over. I was on oxygen for a long time because they were giving me oxygen treatment to try and get the blood to flow. I was disabled for 18 years. I was on crutches. It was only 2.5 years ago I got my hip chopped out and put a new one in. I ken what it's like." The video was met with a lot of praise in social media, with one saying they absolutely loved it and another describing it as heartwarming. SNP MSP James Doran said, "That is fabulous. Really touching to get this reminder of those who came before us. #Shoulder of Giants." A fourth person said it was superb and described Nancy as an inspiring lady. Another Twitter user, meanwhile, said it was good to see an MP who can relate to those he represents. And that article was by Adam Robertson. From the National, Thursday the 18th of May 2023, from the politics section, Tory minister failed to come clean over dinner with Business for. Report by Hamish Morrison. A Tory minister has said her failure to be transparent about hosting a dinner for a shadowy party donor was an admin error. Energy Minister Amanda Soloway used House of Commons facilities to host a private dinner for Business for last June, which had recently donated to her local Conservative branch, without properly declaring her financial links to the firm, reports Politico. She told the news site should rectify the error. Business for is an opaque company which donated £125,000 to former Tory MP Andrew Bigton between 2010 and 2019, according to Open Democracy. The firm is in an unincorporated association with ties to an insurance firm, Politico reported. Its unincorporated status means it is not required to detail the source of its funds or published accounts. The event, hosted by Soloway, then a government whip, was said to have consisted of a reception and a meal, with guests given the chance to meet political movers and shakers, including the then working pension secretary Theresa Coffey. Labour Party chair Annalise Dodds said, "Rules around donations are in place for a reason. It's not good enough for senior Conservatives to simply forget to declare thousands of pounds in donations when arranging what looks an awful lot like privileged access to ministers." Soloway told Politico, "Many thanks for pointing this admin error out. We're now in the process of looking into this and rectifying the record." The event was to encourage more women to develop an interest in politics and have a networking event. She added, "My sincere apologies, there was no deliberate attempt to mislead the record." And that article was by Political reporter Hamish Morrison.
That concludes this week's edition of the National Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels, rate and review, and tell your friends about our service.